Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast Without Tiffany. And I'm looking at Ben Shapiro's show. He's really campaigning big time for Donald Trump, his beloved Donald Trump. And now he's explaining systemic racism by taking apart this video, this animation film. And let's look at that.
Lives in a poor neighborhood. He has a friend named Kevin who lives in a wealthy neighborhood. All of Jamal's neighbors are African American, and all of Kevin's neighbors are white. Because Jamal's school district is mostly funded by property taxes, his school is not very well funded. His classrooms are overcrowded, his teachers are underpaid, and he doesn't have access to high quality tutors.
Teachers are always underpaid, first of all.
Kevin's school district is also funded by property taxes, so his school is very well funded. His classrooms are never crowded, his teachers are very well paid, and he has access to high quality tutors and lots of extracurricular activities.
So let's talk for a second about school policy. The reality is that if you wanted Jamal to be able to go to Kevin's school, what you want is something called school vouchers. You want people to be able to move away from their school district. One of the chief reasons that Jamal is confined to his local public school is because of democratic policy that has decided that you must go to school in the district where you live. And this is also
Is that
why
true?
a lot of people have left lower income areas and moved out to higher income areas specifically for.
So he goes on and on and on. Like Ben Shapiro's children, as far as I know, went to private Jewish schools. Like my kids went to private Jewish schools. Only where I lived, you could easily get a scholarship. So we were not wealthy, and my kids could still go to private schools. Turned out to be not a good decision, hindsight, because of various reasons. It wasn't. Private schools are not necessarily better than public schools, but I did it for other reasons than the quality of education, sadly. As for the other kid having like better conditions, I went to a public school in Queens, not where Donald Trump grew up. And I don't know where Donald Trump went to school, but it was a public school. And we had every ethnic group on earth, which is what my mother wanted. She said she wanted me to go to public school, not to be brainwashed by the Jewish school system. In hindsight, it was about money. Although I think we could have gotten it for free because my father was working for the Jewish agency. Anyway, I'm making it about me. But what I want to say is I went to a public school system in New York City, and I don't know, I don't have anything to compare it to except going back to Israel, where classes are definitely overcrowded and have always been overcrowded, and the teachers are extremely low paid. It doesn't mean if the teachers are low paid that you necessarily have bad teachers. Although in Israel these days, I think it does mean that it doesn't attract the quality people necessarily, because you need to survive. And in the teacher salary in Israel, you can't survive. In America, I don't know how it is, but I guess in America, all teachers are underpaid. It's not a well-paid profession. He even says it later on that African Americans choose to study education. I don't know what malarkey, what nonsense he's saying. He has an agenda, and he's like feeling like, oh, I do all this research, and therefore there's no systematic racism. But you know what? Ben Shapiro will never be stopped by a police officer and shot to death because he's been sleeping in his car because he's intoxicated. Ben Shapiro will never be targeted for the color of his skin by anyone. And as for anti-Semitism in America, well, he can say thank you to Donald Trump for making the atmosphere in America so that it was the first time ever synagogues were targeted, and under Donald Trump, not under any other president. And there's no explanation for that. He's always like, I have a research for that. But why doesn't Donald Trump allow the police force to have racial awareness, anti-prejudice awareness, education? The answer I remember very well, the answer Donald Trump gave is, oh, I don't want people to hate our country. You know, it just seems like every liberal value is tossed out the window. And the same thing with Ben Shapiro. He has a very He's very extremist in the fact that all Democrats are blah, blah, blah. All Democrats do bad things. And, I won't be the first one to admit that maybe people from the left don't do things that we expect them to do. Definitely Biden. However, uh, ignoring the fact that there is systematic racism, and when he says, how come how come African Americans are underperforming? Well, maybe the reason they're underperforming is because they don't perceive themselves as being able to achieve the same things as people without not being targeted by racism. If a person can't walk down the street in a neighborhood without being targeted by the neighborhood watch, as happened in Florida by this thug who shot to death a teenager who was just walking down the street. And there's so many cases of African Americans being shot, and they are afraid. And he's just ignoring that. So of course, if you grow up fearing for simple things like walking down the street, or if you're in the wrong neighborhood, quote unquote, just running, you could be shot to death by police. So you can't ignore that. And under Donald Trump, I think that has definitely gotten worse, because I don't remember anything even similar to that before. I mean, definitely under other regimes, but not as consistent. And George Floyd's murder definitely was a red line. And the way Donald Trump didn't speak against it. Of course, there are also African Americans, conservatives, who say, well, it's their choice to choose crime. It's their choice. Whether somebody goes